Hello, and thank you so much for joining us today. We have a presentation we'd like to share with you called Autism, Understanding and Awareness in Emergency Situations. My name is Jessica Sills, and I'm a speech-language pathologist. I am also the president and co-founder of the nonprofit, the Collaborative Community Mission. And I'm joined tonight with my dear friends, Nikki, who is an autism mommy and the CCM parent liaison, and Andrea, who is also an autism mommy and CCM parent liaison. Our presentation objectives for this evening are to help you understand the definition of signs and symptoms of individuals on the autism spectrum, understand the possible physical and mental differences that individuals on the spectrum experience in comparison to their typically developing peers, and understand how to approach an individual on the spectrum in a potential emergency situation. The first thing we'd like to share with you is a video that we really hope will help you to get a better understanding of what autism is.
Parents, your kids deserve to be comfortable, and that's why you should get them Skechers. Skechers have all the comfort features like Skechers exclusive air-cooled memory foam to keep your kids' feet feeling amazing. Plus, they're a great value, durable, and machine washable. Shop all our kid shoes on Skechers.com.
We are all different. That's wonderful. Some differences are easy to see. Height, hairstyle, gender, eye color, and so on. Other differences can't be seen. Our favorite foods, or special skills. Interestingly, the way we see the world is also different. For instance, what do you see in this drawing? Most people see a duck, but some of you might have seen a rabbit. Whichever you saw, you are correct. This is just a trick drawing to show you that all brains work differently. The brain is your body's computer. It works differently for all of us and controls how you learn. That's why we are all good at different things. How you feel, which is why we all feel. And how you communicate. Sometimes the brain is connected in such a way it affects senses and how we perceive and read situations and interactions. This is known as autism. Many people have autism, so it's likely you already know someone who is autistic. And for this reason, it's useful to know a little bit about autism. The special wiring inside an autistic brain can sometimes make a person tasks we may find difficult, drawing or music. It can also do the opposite, and activities we find too easy are incredibly difficult to learn, such as making friends. Senses constantly send information to your brain about your surroundings and other people. However, when a person's brain and its senses don't communicate well, the brain can become overwhelmed and confused, affecting how they see the world. Picture yourself walking down the street. This is how an autistic brain may experience the same world. Isn't it? Sadly, in many cases, the person can't say out loud how they feel. So even though there's chaos going on in their heads, they seem okay on the outside, unable to ask for help. We all develop behaviors to help us feel calm in uncomfortable situations. We may look away, hug ourselves, chew our fingernails, fidget, bite our lips, and so on. Equally, autistic people develop behaviors that help them cope with these intense moments. These actions may seem unusual, but they're just their way to feel calm. When they happen, it means they are having a hard time. The kind main thing to do is not to give them an even harder time by getting cross, ignoring them, or mocking them. Just because a PlayStation can't read an Xbox game, it doesn't mean it's broken. People with autism need friends who are willing to take the time to know them. With good communication and plenty of patience, everyone would be better off. People with autism are not ill or broken. They simply have a unique view of the world. And with a little support from their friends, they might just be able to share that view. Autism can make amazing.
Great. So thank you to Amazing Things Happening for recording that awesome video for us to watch tonight. See about it here, maybe. Okay, perfect. Okay, so 1 in 59 is the number of children that have been identified as being on the autism spectrum, according to recent CDC data collection. You might look at different publications and the number is going to vary depending on where you look, but you know, that's a roundabout number that you'll come across. Males are more likely to have autism than females. Both Nikki and Andrea have sons with autism. One of the most important things that I would like to get across to everybody in watching this presentation is how important it is to use person-first language. So when you're referring to an individual, please say person with autism. I know it kind of drives me a little bit nuts actually even just watching that video when he says autistic person a couple times in there, but you really want to try to use person with autism. What is autism spectrum disorder? Autism spectrum disorder affects individuals in different and unique ways. The diagnosis can range from mild to severe, but ultimately it's a neurological condition, also known as a developmental disability, that affects the way a person experiences and interacts with the world. Areas that the doctors look at and the professionals look at when diagnosing autism are communication skills, social interaction skills, and repetitive or restricted interests, repetitive behaviors. So when we're thinking about communication skills, this is the ability for an individual to express their wants and needs, their feelings through speech production or spoken language. Delayed speech is one of the most common symptoms of ASD. Some children may have only a few words, they may not produce any spontaneous speech and only repeat words. They may not speak at all, and that's known as being nonverbal. So you just want to be careful because just because an individual is not responding to you, it doesn't mean that they're ignoring you. They just may not be able to communicate back with you.
Or that they don't understand.
Or that they don't understand what you're saying to begin with, exactly. Individuals may produce speech that can be described as monotone or flat, so there's very little inflection in their voice. And they may be very non-expressive. So no intonational patterns, no affect, which are like your feelings and emotions. Their faces kind of just look like a blank slate sometimes. Individuals may use only one-word answers instead of a full sentence. And they may just be repeating back what they hear you saying. So just be careful, you know, when you're asking an individual if they're hurt, they might just repeat back hurt, you know, or are you okay? They might just say okay. Exactly.
Or I'm okay. If you were like, are you okay? Or say I'm okay. If you're okay, they might just say I'm okay and actually not be okay.
Right.
Yep. Because they're just repeating what they're hearing you say. So kind of just being cognizant of that.
And sometimes that can become a loop.
Mhm.
I'm okay. I'm okay.
Yes.
And you
that
think,
goes-
oh, you're okay, but they're not
That's
okay.
absolutely
That happened when Teddy broke his wrist. So,
Yeah, and it can just be the
You're not
complete
okay.
opposite. Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And that goes right back to that repetitive behavior. So
Mhm.
they're just repeating that same phrase over and over again. When we take a look at social skills, this is the ability to facilitate a communication exchange with other people. So having that conversation back and forth, as well as the ability to understand what other people are communicating to you. So a lot of this stuff that I'm going to talk about tonight may apply to one individual or another individual, but not to everybody. So these are just some things that you may come across. An individual may have poor eye contact. They might not use body language or understand the body language of other people. So if you're really upset, and clearly your body is communicating that you're upset, they may not understand that nonverbal cue whatsoever. They may not use facial expressions or gestures when talking, or understand the nonverbal cues of others, which is what I was just explaining. They might be playing next to another person, but not necessarily with that person. So that's kind of called parallel play, where two individuals are playing next to each other. They may also prefer to play alone or with an older individual or somebody that they trust. They have little or no interest in socializing with people their own age sometimes. They may have a poor concept of personal space. So this is something that you may come across a lot when you're trying to communicate with the individual and they're getting like right up in your face and it's making you feel uncomfortable, but that's
touching you.
touching.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I've had a lot of individuals who just, the hair is very soothing to them. So rubbing the hair. If you've got some sort of silky clothing on or soft clothing, they may want to rub or touch the clothing as well. They may not engage in a reciprocal nature of conversation. So asking and answering questions, that volleying back and forth in a conversation. And this is very important, may only want to talk about things that are important to them. So it can be very difficult to bring them back around to what you're actually discussing.
Especially in a stressful situation where there might be sensory components.
Yes.
So, if you're at a car accident, there's a siren, that might be just overwhelming to that individual and they're unable to connect or process because that siren to them may sound deafening.
Yes.
Absolutely. Or like, especially in children's case, if there's an ambulance or a police car or a fire truck, they might be like hyper aware of the ambulance and fire truck and only be, talking about that and only wanting to, go see that or run toward that. So that's definitely something, for sure, about what's important to them.
Mm-hmm. And just listening to this too makes me think about the other fact that some kids use that repetitive phrase to calm themselves. So they're talking about something that is important to them a lot of times because it's calming to them. So it's kind of like they're taking themselves to their happy place.
Comforting.
Yep. And they might just keep being going back to that. Exactly. Repetitive or restrictive behaviors. Some individuals may exhibit repetitive patterns of behavior, interests, or activities. For example, they might have repetitive motor movements, which is also known as stimming. So they might be hand flapping, tapping items with their hands, picking at their fingers, rocking their bodies back and forth. We talked a lot about that repetitive speech pattern where they're just saying the same dialogue over and over again.
Teddy is one of his most common stims is running between 2 points in a room.
Yes.
And very fast. But the thing is that if he's doing that and you walk in that path, he'll run you right over. Like he's running his siblings over.
So that's important to know, right? The blinders are on.
Yeah.
He's not even aware of his surroundings. So again, the child is not being rude or purposefully trying to hurt somebody else. It's just that's where their mind is at that moment in time and they're in the zone
Absolutely. And they won't respond either. I mean, Daniel, he loud squeals, and when he's in that, you've heard it, when he's squealing and, humming and really loud, and when he's doing that, and if I try to get his attention, even if I do the eyes, because that's our thing, he won't. I mean, so they will not respond to you, especially when they're actively stimming, he won't. I know in his case, not every child is, the same, but in his case, he would never respond to you. He just can't, that's what's important to him right then. That's what he needs, for him to regulate himself, and he won't, he really won't respond. So that's definitely something to, remember.
And I find it's crucial too, because in an emergency situation, let's say there's a fire and you need to avoid an area, but that child is fixated in something in that area, then that's another level of alert that the responder needs to be aware of, is that that child may not be going to that danger on purpose, but there's something in that, inadvertently, heading into the danger, so to speak.
It's a great point. Absolutely. Restrictive behaviors refer to an individual's preference for things or daily activities to be done with little or no variation. So activities often need to be done in the same order, or with the same people, or at the same time of the day. They might have inflexibility with routines and schedules, and highly restricted or fixated interests. And again, you'll see a lot of it is related to television, a particular show that they might like. So you'll hear a lot of TV talk.
Best advice I can give for that: look at the child, see what they're wearing.
Yes.
Their shirt, their shoes, their bag they may have. Those are all going to be good tips and insights, because our children are very fixated on things they love.
Yes. Absolutely. Yep, and their parents know that, and so they're, helping them to get through their day by giving them their favorite things.
He's more willing to put his shoes on if they have Hot Wheels on them.
Right. So perfect.
It's all Hot Wheels all the time.
Exactly. Still have a big Mickey fan over in your house?
Mickey and Paw Patrol still.
Okay, yep.
24/7.
Love it. Sensory processing, over or under stimulated by the objects or sounds. And we talked a little bit about that with the sirens and the lights going off. So.
And that could be temperature.
Yes, exactly.
There's a lot of components that I never thought about until Teddy taught me what could be a trigger.
Yes.
Even, let's say there's an accident, a child ends up with their shoes off. Sometimes grass is a completely convulsive sense for them. They don't want to be on grass or concrete or sand. Right. So these are all things that their environment can be a trigger.
Yes, exactly. The diagnosis. So a multidisciplinary team, also known as the MDT, will diagnose for autism. And typically it consists of several people, such as a developmental psychologist, a physician. They might have input coming in from the speech pathologist, the physical therapist, the occupational therapist, behavior specialist, and they could also consult with the special education teacher, as well as the parent report. So there's a huge amount of people involved in helping to make this diagnosis. Yes. Symptoms must be present during the developmental period. So when a child is born, through their developmental stages, basically their early years, and must cause a clinically significant impairment in functioning. So in 2013, the DSM-5 released a new classification for autism spectrum disorder, and it's a diagnosis for any individual displaying autistic-like characteristics. So now there are 3 levels. Level 1, if a child comes out of a diagnosis with a level 1, it's usually referring to a mild form of autism, which requires less support. A level 2 is a more moderate level, requiring more support, and the level 3 is a more severe condition, and it requires intensive support. And I believe that you can be at one level and, make improvements and move to another level.
And vice versa.
Absolutely.
With
or
regression.
be in between.
Yes.
Daniel's actually in between levels.
Okay.
So they didn't actually give him the certain level, but he's in between it. So that's,
okay.
Yeah.
On a good day, we can be a 2. On a bad day, we can be a 3.
Right.
We really fluctuate depending on
Absolutely.
situationally.
Yes, that's a perfect, or even just like we were talking about too, what's going on in the environment
Yes.
can definitely trigger a difference.
Which way the wind blows.
Yes,
really
what's
trigger
going
it.
on?
Yeah.
So what characteristics might you notice as an emergency response provider? You might see that an individual is having a hard time making eye contact. You might see a meltdown in reaction to the change in schedule or the routine. And I've seen it to be anything from some crying or, some resistance to full-on meltdown. You might see some head banging. You might see screaming erratically. You might see some kicking, and just they're kind of just not even in themselves. It's an out-of-body experience, really. I don't know if you guys can speak to that at all.
I mean, it could be destructive behavior.
Destructive, yes.
Absolutely.
Throwing things.
We don't want to leave a space, so then those things maybe get thrown about,
Yes,
or won't release them. Like if
yes.
we're in a certain environment, he wants something, he won't give it up.
Right.
We need to leave.
Yes.
Yep. Anger. I mean, anger is a big one. Hitting, biting,
Yes.
pinching, hair pulling, anything they can really, get their hands on to kind of just have an outlet,
It's
not
a
to take it
release.
personal.
Yep.
And it's not directed at
Absolutely.
anyone in particular.
No,
I mean,
it's
just
just
whoever's in the
release.
range, really.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yep,
You're in their
absolutely.
space, their zone.
I never take it personal, when Daniel's having a hard time and when he really, goes, to the extreme with meltdowns and he's having a full blown meltdown. And it's good to remember to not take it personal. He's not doing it to you purposely. He can't control it. And,
Great advice.
absolutely. Why doesn't he do it to dad? Because mom's the one home all day long.
Right.
I mean, that's why, so definitely I learned through the years to not take it personal.
And I think it's really important to know that an individual can be a fight or flight
Mhm.
Thank
wrapped
you
up
for
in one
saying that.
package, because
Absolutely.
depending on the
Mhm.
situation, sometimes Teddy gets upset and angry, and other times, he's the kid that runs away.
Mhm.
He's the kid that elopes out the door
Right.
and down
I
the
love
street.
that you brought that up.
That's really
because
important
That's
because
very
They
important.
can be wrapped up in one little package.
Mhm.
So what you always want to do is make sure that you're in between the individual and the escape room. So
Yes.
wherever the door is, right, and then the individual, you're in the middle of that, so
Absolutely.
that you can kind of help intercept there. Individuals may repeat phrases repeatedly without context. They may flap their arms when they are trying to, when they're walking or when they get a little excited. They may not be able to communicate their wants and needs through verbal language. They may respond negatively to loud noises or bright lights. So you might see a lot of the ear covering or covering their eyes, just trying to escape that. They may not like to be touched, or they may crave some input. So they might want the deep squeezes. And that goes back to that over-understimulated in the sensory zones of regulation. Individuals only talk, they may only talk about certain topics like trains or comic book characters or Hot Wheels or Mickey or Paw Patrol. So, you might think that they are saying something that sounds like they're having conversation with you, and then you realize that they're repeating back a scripted scene from something they have already seen.
And another thing to touch point on about the vestibular
Yes.
input is that you may think that they were almost in a sense assaulting you. Teddy pushes his head into
Yes.
you, your leg, your chest, your head, and he really burrows.
Yes.
Like he's looking for deep input.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And if you're unfamiliar with that kind of behavior, you could find it, a little combative.
Mhm.
Yep.
And for him, it's self-soothing.
Yes.
Absolutely.
He's trying to calm himself,
Mhm.
but sometimes I have to say, okay, or it's too much.
Mhm.
And that happens a lot with individuals seeking pressure to their head specifically. And again, remember that they may not always be aware of the concept of personal space.
Mhm.
So those two things together, creates that environment where they're kind of in your space for no other reason than that's just what they need at that point in time.
Input for sure.
We went through a slight headbutting phase
Oh, yeah.
where we had to redirect towards a pillow or,
Mhm.
something that wouldn't injure
Yeah.
another individual.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. So the moral of all of this is, remember, if you have met one child with autism, then you have done just that, met one child with autism.
That's like my favorite
Me too.
quote of everything.
Yeah.
Love it. So this is my buddy Teddy, Nikki's son, and I'm inviting her to share a little bit about her love.
Absolutely. So Teddy is my oldest child. We have 3. He just turned 8 recently. And his journey has definitely been a learning curve for myself and the rest of our family, but in the most amazing way. Teddy actually was developing very typically till about the age of 12 months, was hitting all the milestones. We had words, we had eye contact, all those things. The doctor, when you go in for your visit, say, are they doing this, this, and this? And you're like, yes, yes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then between 12 and 15 months, we noticed a decrease in language, a decrease in eye contact to the point where he would only connect with myself. He would not look at my husband at all when he came home from work. There was just no words at one point. We went between 14 and 15 months, we had a silent house. He was our only child at that time, so you'd walk in our house and wouldn't even know we had a child unless you saw toys.
Mm-hmm.
It was silent, and we knew something wasn't right, but we had no exposure to the autism community at all, had no previous experience, had heard it in passing, but not really what it meant. And luckily, and this has just been the greatest gift of all, I had a very good friend who had worked with individuals in the special needs community. And when we had recently moved back from California and we were having play dates, because our children are about 6 months apart. So, a great fit to make a friend and introduce what, playing should be.
Mm-hmm.
And one day she sat me down and she started crying. She said, I have to tell you something. And now this is from someone who had known me since we were in 4th grade. So we'd been friends forever.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to tell you something, and I don't know how to tell you, but I think that you need to call early intervention, which is a state service here in New York, and have Teddy evaluated. There's something off kilter.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really hard for her to tell me, but I was so grateful because as soon as she said that, I said, okay, he's not quirky.
Mm-hmm.
There's more going on here. There's something bigger happening.
Mm-hmm.
But at 15 months old, especially with your first child, you have
Right.
no comparison. We lived out of state when our nieces and nephews were growing up, so we didn't really get those milestone ages and what came with it. And after that, it was just full steam ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Early intervention came in, evaluations, and that was at 15 months. By 18 months, we had a full diagnosis of autism. Teddy is, we've been lucky in the sense that he has been very typical in all the definitions of autism, in the sense that, he was nonverbal at one point. He didn't have the eye contact. He played by himself. He would play in a corner all day with Hot Wheels by himself, if you let him. So then it was, delving into 27 hours a week of in-home therapies between a speech pathologist, occupational therapist, physical therapist. We had a SEEIT, which is a traveling special ed teacher that comes into your home. And we just went from 0 to 100 in no time at all. And we started, at home. That progressed to a half-day preschool setting at a center-based school. And then that led into full days. And we still are totally, surrounded by therapeutic supports. And every year brings new challenges. And we have to find how to move forward and get the right supports for those challenges with every age developmental milestone we either hit or don't hit, and figure out how to get him there.
Yeah.
So he's now 8. He is verbal, which has been one of our greatest achievements. He's worked very hard to get there, and working very hard on social skills. He's moving into a 12-1 classroom this year from an 8-1, previously a 6-1. So, we slow and steady. He's making strides, but that's with great work and dedication from himself and everyone around him.
Absolutely.
Wow, I do. I love that too. I'm feeling kindred spirits here.
Right?
We're very much alike.
I know that is very similar to your story.
So, my son Daniel, he is 5 now, turning 6 in January. My story is a little different from Nikki's, and Daniel's story is a little different from Teddy's, because Daniel was very we kind of knew very early on, I'd say about 5 months, that Daniel, we didn't know if it was autism at the time, but we knew there was something, not that I've seen in movies. I didn't really have anything to compare him to. I kind of did, but not really. I had younger cousins, but I don't compare children. So like maybe he's moving at his own pace. But Daniel, the first real thing we noticed was that Daniel, he stimmed. And he did not speak. He did not say mom, dad. He did not meet any milestones socially, verbally, but he would meet his physical milestones. So basically at the doctors, they were like, oh, he's fine. He's walking. He's like 9 months and walking. Oh, he's great. But, at about 5 months, he started stimming, which was in the form of hand flapping and like I would say squealing. It's still his thing. He squealing very loud, but at like things that really pleased him, like running water. So like the bathtub, or like if it was, he saw a moving fan, he started doing these things. And I'm like, oh, at first I thought it was just because he was happy. I'm like, oh, wow, like that's adorable. And, I even took a video on my cell phone and showed the pediatrician, and he was like, oh yeah, it's a little tick, but, and I'm like, oh, okay. So, then came the no eye contact and no speaking. There wasn't the mama, there wasn't the dada, there wasn't the babbling, there wasn't the eating was a struggle. Nursing very early on was a struggle. And my mother-in-law actually, she would text me all the time and be like, does Daniel do this? And I'm like, why do you need to know these things? And finally she's like, oh, I'm going to pick you up. We're going to go out and go shopping. I'm like, cool, like awesome, And she's like, I have to talk to you. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, I really think that you need to get Daniel evaluated. And I'm like, evaluated? Like for what? She's like, listen, what Daniel's doing isn't excitedness. It's called stimming. And she kind of had a little bit of knowledge in autism. Daniel's cousin is a little boy who's on the spectrum as well. Kind of far down cousin, and she's like, listen, I think that you really need to get him evaluated. So finally, when I came to the pediatrician about a year, and said, listen, this is a problem. And he goes, oh, it is a problem. And he was very amazing. I mean, I still to this day thank his pediatrician so much, and he's retired, but I'll give him a shout out. His name was Dr. Loria, and he was amazing. And he goes, you know what, you're right. He goes, I'm going to call Robert Warner Center right now. And I'm like, oh, okay. And he's like, don't worry, don't be upset. He like rubbed my little shoulder and was like, everything's going to be fine. He called Robert Warner Center, and just by chance, a center that usually takes here in Buffalo, that usually takes up to a year to get a meeting to, they had a cancellation that day. Somebody called and canceled their appointment for a week out from then. And they're like, we can get you in next week. And from then on, he saw a doctor there who to this day is probably still one of my favorite people on earth, because she looked me in the eye and she goes, I'm not going to lie to you, and I can't tell you, what's going on, but I could tell you that your child might have autism. And she's like, and I want you to know that it's okay for you to be upset right now. And that's the first thing she said to my husband and I. And I'm like, okay, so this feeling of, kind of upset is normal, because I have a healthy child. Why am I going to be upset? So from then on, it was come back in 3 months so we can have a formal evaluation. But in that 3 months, we're going to get early intervention, like Nikki said, a thing here in New York to come evaluate your child. So then it was occupational therapist, physical therapist, all these people in and out of the house. And of course, Daniel freaked out. And then by 1.5, he was diagnosed with autism. And I'll never forget it. It was on the paper, it said moderate to severe. And I'm like, I had no idea there was, different things that autism could be, moderate, severe, So from that forward, we actually met Jessica. She was his speech therapist. And from then on, we really made it our mission to learn everything about autism, to explain to our family members everything that autism is, and to really push forward normalizing autism, because we learned how many children actually have autism and how many people our age and any age have children with autism. But I'm happy to say that Daniel, He's not very verbal yet. He has echolalia, so he echoes everything I say. Gotta be careful because he'll say it. So he has echolalia, but he's not very verbal yet. And his social skills aren't there yet, but they're there enough for me and for him. You know, I don't mind that he goes into a room and sits away from the group and does his thing because that's what makes Daniel Daniel. Okay with that. But just his dedication to show up is enough for us, and his dedication to get up in the morning, to go to school, to go on a bus with people he doesn't know, is enough for us. And he was, like Teddy, very much he started see it at home, and then he did the half days, and then he did the whole days, and then now he's going into kindergarten at a Central Lakeshore Central. Well, it's okay, Lakeshore Central, and we're going to see how that works for him because, like you said, Teddy goes to
the Summit Center.
Okay,
he's
Summit
starting
Center.
third grade there.
Okay, did he start in a district?
No, so
Okay.
we chose to do the half-day program at Summit.
That's
We just felt it. His severity was at that point where he needed to be at a center-based location.
So that's what we're thinking maybe in our future with Daniel. We're going to try Lakeshore Central, and we're going to try the Central District, but he's going to be in a 9-1-1 classroom. He'll have his own aide this year when school starts. So we're really excited about that. But it's really nice to sit and, hear each other's stories and bounce our stories off of each other and to talk to people about autism, because like we said, not every person with autism is the same, you know.
And I don't know about you, but we went through that same thing. We got Teddy's diagnosis and we're like, what does that mean? What is, you're telling us that he has autism, and I have no idea. So then, we jumped in, we're reading things, we're watching things, and we're like, you're getting great input and not so great input. You don't know what to make the most of it. And
even then you're confused.
Yeah,
like,
it's
what
very
does this mean?
confusing,
Yeah.
and some of the things can be completely opposite. But our biggest thing has been to approach it all with an open mind, because we're still learning who Teddy is. He's 8. I would hate to have somebody try and have me figured out by the time I was 8.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a learning curve for our family, for his educators, for his therapists. And so our biggest thing has always been, if he wants to do something, we're doing it. We're going to figure out how we do it. And, that goes right back to going into, I'm trying to think how old he was. He was probably 5. And we started going to something called Music with Mar. And it's an interactive music class, and for neurotypical individuals and those with special needs. But we didn't know how to get him to do what the other kids were doing. Walk around the room with a drum. And, we ended up doing kind of what's puppeting, where you take their hands and you're right behind them, and you're like a marionette, and we did that for 2 years. And people around us didn't understand what we were doing. And at that point, I wasn't quite sure. I hadn't found my autism mom shoes yet. And that's important because I feel like, I go out into the world and I can advocate every day now. But at that point, I didn't know what I was saying because I hadn't gone through it yet. And so my way of like kind of giving people a little insight was like, I wear my son has autism, what's your superpower shirt? And just to kind of break the ice, because I always felt like I just needed a foot in. Like I just needed to connect with people so that they could understand that he's a little different, but he's amazing. And to give him a minute or 10 to get to know him a little bit, because you'll love him, but he's his own flavor, and you have to roll with it a little bit.
Nikki, I love that you say that and you do what works for you. And for some people, it doesn't. For some, it doesn't make sense sometimes. And I always say this, and it's like my favorite thing to say, and I say it all the time, but like holidays and traditions, for family traditions, and there's things that you do every year. For Christmas, you do this, and for Christmas Eve, you do that, and for Easter, you do this, and Easter, you do that. And there are these things that are instilled into you. And now that you're an adult with your family of your own and you're going to do these things, it just doesn't work for you. And some of these things don't work for you, and that's okay. It's okay to say, hey, listen, Daniel's having a rough Christmas this year. We're going to miss Christmas at Uncle. Uncle Fred's house. We're going to miss Christmas. And at first I was like, oh my God, but I need his picture taken with Santa, and I need this, that, and the other. And it's like, you really don't. Just do what he likes to do and roll with it. Like you said, just go and do what works for him. And like Teddy, like that worked for him at Music with Marv. That worked for him. And to other people, they don't understand it, but for us as parents, we go home that day knowing he had the best time.
We didn't care. We didn't care. I mean, we saw, we had other friends in the class that had taken photos and videos, and we watched it. We said, oh my gosh, we looked absolutely ridiculous. But then we look back and say, but over that time, he got it. And by the end of the 2 years, he was doing it. And, we didn't have to do it alongside him, but, by jumping in and just saying, let's do this. And it's not comfortable, and it's not, sometimes you just have to get out there and do it, and you have to pick your battles. So perfect example, you were talking about the holidays. Everybody has these concepts, and this is ideals. So we always have chicken fries for Teddy at the Thanksgiving table with the turkey, because that's what he eats. He doesn't eat turkey. And so for everyone to enjoy their meal, just mind your own plate.
Right.
That's really our perspective.
I love that. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yes, I love that. And I love that you brought up the point also of getting your foot out there and trying to connect with people, trying to explain to people without actually knowing how to explain it. And I love that, because sometimes, and I love that you brought that up, because sometimes to me still, I mean, I'm like, how am I going to explain, that Daniel is squealing really loud at the doctor's office? But then when parents are kind of, looking, and they're kind of like, when their kids are kind of backing off, like, what is he doing? I'm kind of like, oh, that's just his way of showing he's excited. He's excited to be here, And at first I was just like, but now it's like, no, you don't have to calm down. No, you're fine. No. And I love that you said that, because a lot of parents are at that point still where it's hard to get their foot in.
It's hard
to explain something. Step. Absolutely. And I love that you said that, because parents that could be watching this could be like, you know what? We could just do what we want to do, and we can just say what we want to say. Well,
and I honestly think that sometimes, even though it's a very hard step to say, hey, this is my kid, and this is how we roll, I find that 9 times out of 10, most people are like, oh, cool, or tell me about it.
Exactly.
Or, other kids are like, oh, I have a kid in my class. Like there's a bridge, there's a connection, and it's just about normalizing
Yes, it is
everybody's difference.
Yes.
And that's
celebrating
really
it. Absolutely. Oh, I love this. Oh,
I know. Goosebumps.
Great conversation, ladies. So, how to respond and what to be aware of during an emergency situation. We came up with a few things that we wanted to go through with you. Maybe we can each take turns reading one. I'll start. Some individuals may be afraid of uniforms or hats, so if possible, try to remove your hat so that you can show your face. And I know that right now it's especially tricky too with everyone having to wear masks, but if you can, it's a nice way to just help the child to see that, you're a person behind the mask and the hat.
Approach the individual calmly. Ask permission to touch the individual. And this is really important, because if you are approaching someone that is on the spectrum and they're already in distress, you don't know where their personal space is. It could be 5 feet, it could be 20 feet. And once you cross that line, if they don't know you, they could feel threatened, they could feel scared, that could cause them to flee. And the touching component is really important. Teddy has always been an individual that likes touch, but we have many friends that don't like to be hugged. They don't want someone's hand on them. They don't want assistance putting a shoe on.
Right.
So, and once you cross that line, it will only heighten the situation in an already intense moment. Yes.
Absolutely. Talk in a calm, quiet, and low-pitched voice. Tell the individual exactly what you're doing and how you're doing it. Use short phrases and minimal, simplistic language. This is huge, because in an emergency situation, in any situation with a neurotypical child, if you come up to them and start yelling and are like, oh my God, get out of the car, they're going to start crying and freaking out. But when you're talking about a child on the spectrum or any child that has a disability, you're talking about their sound is heightened, their sensory system is heightened. So if you start off by yelling, you are heightening their anxiety by like 1,000. And then you want to go and tell the individual exactly what you're doing and how you're doing it. I can tell you that a lot of, if you go up to Daniel and you're like, all right, bud, like we're going to do this now. It's almost like in the same sense of using like a social story to explain to him that this is what's happening. And so he can have an idea of what's happening and it's not so,
it's not a surprise for him.
It's not a surprise.
He's prepared.
And it's not unexpected. Absolutely. So, and definitely use short phrases and minimal simplistic language. I know a lot of children actually speak very, Daniel is, it's not for every autistic child either, or child with autism. It's, if you were to make like a joking phrase to him, he wouldn't understand it.
Right.
You know, so you need to use a short phrase and not a sarcastic phrase, or not.
Right.
You need to be very
Literal.
frank and literal on what you want them to do and make it as short and as simplistic as possible. If you were like,
It's raining cats and dogs, it's not going to translate.
no, or anything like that. He's, you know, just, hey, buddy, I'm going to pick you up, or I'm going to grab your hands. Don't be afraid. I'm here, and I'm going to take you to this area back here just so you're safe.
Yeah.
That is the way to explain something to any child, really. So definitely that is huge in this sense.
Can I say something to that nature too? Because someone, I think it was our See It from way back when, that gave me this example, and it really resonated with me. Everyone's seen Charlie Brown. The teacher, wah, 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 wah. So there, when you speak too much and in too much of a complex language, like we have to go over here, this is very dangerous, blah, 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 I always envision Teddy just hearing wah, 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 wah. You know,
Exactly.
it drowns out and it gets lost. So we learned when we first started speaking with Teddy, it was let's sit, go now, very just directives.
Yep.
And it worked.
Yes.
And, you know, people would kind of look at me if we were out in public and I'm like, sit down, be, you know,
Yep.
eat slowly.
Right.
And
That's really,
it's,
it's
you know,
important. It really is.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Lead an individual who is confrontational to a more quiet area. Give them some time to calm down if necessary. And at the Collaborative Community Mission, we've worked really hard to put some sensory bags together for emergency response teams. So if you're in need of one of those for your unit, please reach out and contact us, and we'll be more than happy to get one of those to you. But if you're able to lead an individual safely to a quiet area, you can utilize the tools inside the bag to help them calm down and help them feel more safe and comfortable. There are a lot of fidget toys in there. There's a lot of textures in there for feeling. Headphones if it's too loud. So
I think the PEX cards
that's what I was just going to say next.
key
Yes, the PEX card in there to help them to communicate. If they're having difficulty expressing themselves, you can help them and show them that there's another way that they can communicate using the picture symbols.
So I don't know for everyone, like, because I think too, you know, when you come into this world, there's a lot of acronyms and jargon, and you don't know what, I don't know what any of this is, IEP and PECS, and so PECS is picture exchange communication.
Yes.
And so you're using pictures to represent an activity or a word or a description, and it just clearly defines what words might not be able to.
Right, yes, because individuals with autism tend to be very visual learners and visual communicators. Great points, love it.
Be aware that some individuals respond to crisis by fleeing, and they may try to hide in emergency situations. And I can speak to this because Teddy is a child that flees. We've had some really scary situations where he just out of nowhere, like, boop, and he's really, really fast. So, and in that moment, you don't realize that there's an issue till, you know, they're already taking off. So I think being very aware of the children or any individual actually on the spectrum and where they are and the surroundings you're near. Like if you're near water, you're going to want to have your eyes open and not turn your head for 10 minutes or 10 seconds, really,
absolutely,
because that elopement is really detrimental to the safety of that individual. I don't know why, but there's a correlation to children on the spectrum being drawn to water. And a lot of children that elope end up drowning because of that draw to the water. And we had that same problem with Teddy. Anytime we were near water, I remember the first time we went to the lake, we're all excited, go to the beach for the first time. And it was 4th of July weekend and there was commotion and he was overstimulated and he like shot right out into the lake and he didn't have swimmies on and I mean, it was terrifying.
And it's almost important to note, guys, that they are not aware of their surroundings. They, especially in a high, tense and crazy emergent situation, they are not going to be aware of their surroundings at all. I mean, I know Daniel, I don't know if Teddy is the same way. He's not aware of his surroundings. He could, when he's on a mission to go, he goes. He doesn't he doesn't care where he's going. He's going toward anything. If there's anybody, like you said, in his way, if there's anything dangerous nearby, if there's any loud noises nearby, he doesn't care. He's going.
So it can be a day-to-day kind of thing. I mean, we have a handicap packing placard because as Teddy's gotten older and doesn't understand that in a parking lot there are moving cars and you have to be aware of your environment, he's almost gotten hit by a car.
Especially if they go toward things. Daniel, he loves to go toward moving things. So if there was a moving object coming near him, and he would go towards it,
run right into it.
He's done it. He goes towards the kid on the swing, so he'd get knocked backwards. He goes toward anything running. So it's definitely important they don't know their surroundings, and even if they do know their surroundings and know that it's unfamiliar to them, they will continue to dart no matter where they go. Like I mean, like you said, the lake. I mean, that's scary. He didn't know where he was, and he just kept going.
Or, I always use this example. When we had Teddy's younger brother, who was about 21 months younger, I just wanted to go in the backyard and play with my kids. And so once his younger brother Jack started to toddle around, it became impossible for me to go outside without another individual because we live in a wooded area. And if Teddy went in one direction and Jack was in the other,
no way.
There's no response to. That's another thing. When you say, "Hey, stop," there is no stopping. They just go.
They don't even turn around.
They don't even acknowledge that you've said stop. Or in Teddy's case, he knows it now. And looks at you and gives you a little smile and keeps going. So that's a really important component to understand that just because you say stop doesn't mean that it will be comprehended or followed.
Exactly.
We don't go anywhere. I don't actually in our house. I can't go outside alone with Daniel. He's so quick and so sneaky and very sneaky. If I turned my head for 2 seconds, he'd be out. I mean, so we just, the puppy, we can't take her outside if it's just one person out there with him because I can't watch her and watch him because he's very, boom, he'll go. And it's very scary.
Right? I use the word opportunistic with Teddy quite often.
Opportunistic. I love that because that is 100%
Oh, hey,
certain.
Mom's signing for you a PS package. This is a great time to start for the woods, So.
Absolutely. Some individuals may have no awareness of danger. Yes, we just talked about that at the last slide. Daniel and Teddy, I'm sure Daniel has absolutely no awareness of danger. He, and this is a great example. There's a playground. Playgrounds, there's openings where you can go down the slide or go down the monkey bars. Daniel would walk right off of it. He has no perception of his surroundings, and he doesn't understand that if you walk off of that, you're falling. And he doesn't have the concept of danger. He has no concept of that at all. In a lot of situations, especially in an emergent situation, he would, if there was a situation where someone needed to get pulled out of a vehicle, if they were on the spectrum, I know Daniel, if it had been Daniel, he would not be aware that, hey, this is dangerous for you to be in this car right now. He would still resist. And that's a good thing to, too. He won't care that it's dangerous.
To be aware of what the danger is.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, we have campfires. We're making s'mores and we have to, constantly draw Teddy away from the fire because he's in it trying to roast his marshmallow. And until he gets hurt, he doesn't realize, oh, hey, this is dangerous. And,
Right.
and even then, even though he may know when I'm cooking, I can't leave the kitchen unattended, because he'll reach in and be like, oh, hey,
Yeah.
that's hot, and so it's knowing that just because you know something's dangerous, that individual may not even understand what danger is present.
Absolutely.
Individuals on the spectrum may like concrete and realistic examples. Many individuals on the spectrum appreciate predictability and routines. So this is an example of what Nikki and I were talking about earlier with picture symbols. These are representations, these are visuals, so that an individual knows exactly what's going on. This is a sample for a good morning routine or a good morning schedule. So good morning, I'm gonna wake up, I'm gonna go to the bathroom, I'm gonna have breakfast, I'm gonna brush my teeth and brush my hair, and then I'm gonna get dressed for the day. These pictures help the individual to know what's coming next. It helps them to predict what's coming next. And it also gives them a way to communicate. So maybe, as a parent, you might say to your child, oh, what did you just do? And the child could say, I just went to the bathroom. And then mom says, okay, next we're going to look at our pictures. We're going to have breakfast. So that's, another reason why we wanted to include that communication board in the sensory bags, so that individuals have a way to have that interaction with you in a difficult situation.
I think it's important too, like, even though Teddy is now verbal,
Yes.
when he gets upset or
Yes.
hurt or injured, he loses his language.
Yep.
We've seen a lot of regression with language since the pandemic started.
Right.
Whether it's anxiety or stress. And so even if someone's able to communicate, they might not be able to in that moment.
Yep, in that situation, which again is a great opportunity for you to use the visuals, for sure.
Some individuals may not speak and or may not understand directions. They may need someone to lead them by hand to a safe space. Use photos whenever possible to help with communication. And this just clearly defines choices. A lot of our children are exposed to therapeutic services that give them choices. So by utilizing photos like these shown, it just gives very clear options for the children or individual to connect with.
Some individuals may benefit from social stories to help prepare them for emergency situations. Absolutely, 100%. This, I could actually speak a personal story. 2 years ago, my mother-in-law had fallen and broke her knee, and Daniel witnessed it. He witnessed the whole thing, and he was very upset, and he didn't understand how upset he was, why he was upset, why his Mima was on the ground, what had happened, didn't understand how to distinguish what happened in his brain to let his emotions out, but he was very weird with her. I mean, when she got home, he was like, I'm not going near her, And my sister-in-law, she's so amazing. She actually brought him over a book that she made. She went and printed out all these pictures of him and my mother-in-law and somebody slipping and falling on the internet. She got it off Google, and she made a whole book, and it was called Mima's Got a Boo Boo, and it was just pictures.
I love this.
Yeah, and I flipped it open, and she was there with him, and after he read that, he ran right up to my mother-in-law and jumped on her lap, and he understood from the picture.
Right.
And it was almost like, I feel like had he, God forbid, see something like that again, he would understand now after seeing pictures of what had happened. So these social stories are so important. And actually making a social story for an emergency situation would be important to children that understand social stories. That definitely would be. But I mean, I don't know, Daniel might be confused because it didn't happen. You know what I'm saying? This, like, if it were another situation. But some children, they do thrive on seeing social stories, and they're really helpful. They're extremely helpful.
We have a whole bucket of them next to Teddy's
The
bed.
library.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It is. It's in, luckily we have a great school that we're connected with. And whenever we face a new challenge, we say, we need a social story for such and such.
Absolutely.
So, we had one about wearing a cast, because now you have this plaster thing attached to your
Yes.
arm, and you can't stick things in it. You can't
Mhm.
smash it on things. And, whether in it using a quiet voice and not running away.
Mhm.
Sometimes Doc travels for work.
Yes.
So your routine is going to change.
Yep.
We struggled for a while with going on the bus Monday through Friday and not going on the bus Saturday and Sunday. He'd sit in the window crying, looking for the bus. So, it's just that giving them a sense of concrete
Yes.
Yes.
definition of what
It's almost like
to happen.
explaining it in a way that they can visualize and understand.
Yeah, makes sense to them.
Absolutely. I remember when Daniel
Reasoning.
first started preschool, and you actually told me, you're like, take a picture of the school.
Mhm.
So Dan and I drove out to Springville, and we snapped a picture of the school, and that's what we did. And we said, listen, every day we would get up and we would show him the picture. And we were like, listen, in a few days you're going here, buddy. You're going here. You're going here for half a day. And I believe it really helped, because he was kind of, when we the first day we drove up, he was kind of like, oh, so this is what they were showing.
Yeah.
So
This is the place.
he definitely understood when he saw the building. He's like, oh, okay. And even now, he loves looking at pictures of things and saying what they are, and it's very easy for him to communicate through touching. He can't really say them yet, but just from pointing. So pictures are very important.
You know what? I was just going to say, we utilize things like that when we started to go out in the community more.
Yep.
And we wanted to give Teddy a voice before he had found his. And we would have pictures of, he loved to go for rides in the car. So we would have packs, like a picture of the Sunoco gas station and Wegmans
Yes.
and choices. And he could pick what errands we were going to run that day.
Yes.
And you know what? We got things done, so that's all that mattered.
Mhm.
And he loved that he contributed and had some control of
Yeah, that
his,
is great.
of his
Yes.
environment and movements.
Right.
That's great. I do love that. Pictures are really important.
Okay. Advocate and encourage parents to prepare their children for emergency situations using social stories and teachable moments. Have important information on a laminated card in various places. So in your home, in your car, in the parent's wallet, purse, on the child. And you want to make sure it includes the child's name, their date of birth, any important medical information that someone might need to know about the child, and an emergency contact. Consider using window decals. We have a child with autism on board in this vehicle. Please be advised that in an emergency situation, this child may run away, may resist your help. The child may be nonverbal, they may not understand or have any awareness of the danger surrounding them. Reach parents by getting involved with your local school districts, your special education departments, advocacy groups, and community events. It's so important, as much as we're trying to relay this information to you, for it to go the other way and for you to reach out to the other parents in the community.
And I want to say something about that, because I remember the first time I put a sticker on my car related to autism, and I was like, I almost felt like I was like just putting it out there.
Right.
And now the entire back of my car is like Mama Bear with an autism puzzle piece. And, I had some friends that were a little concerned. They're like, well, are you labeling him? And I said, no, I'm trying to make sure that the world knows who we are.
Yeah.
His autism doesn't define him, but it is a component of him that people need to understand and comprehend to have a meaningful relationship with him.
And it's a big part of your life, and for people to understand that it's a part of your life as well. It's a huge part of your life. Almost everything about your life, and a lot of people don't, they could be like, oh, well, you're defining your life by it. It's like, no, but our life is not defined by it.
We're living our life
We're living our life with it, and our children are our life. So that's important, and it's very important. And I will say, even not even on your car, but in front of your home, we have signs, because I don't know if anybody else, but during the pandemic, we are Amazon shoppers. So we have people dropping stuff off every day. So I put something, I bought them off Etsy, and they're in our front, and then by the front of our house, and it says, child with autism, he will escape if you open the door, and he will resist your help, and, just to be aware. And it actually, as little as that, it gives me a peace of mind to know that people that enter my home know that this is his home and this is our area and this is what goes on. And this is important for you to know if you're entering our house, to kind of understand and watch for your surroundings as well.
I can't tell you how many times signage like that has been so important for our house. We also have my father, who's disabled, who lives with us, and he has aides that come in and out of the house on their own schedule. And so making sure that everyone coming in is aware, like if you unlock this door, you need to relock it for everyone's safety. And just, you know, letting everyone know what's going on under our roof.
Absolutely.
And that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's awareness.
It's awareness.
It definitely is, and it's important on your car. It's important inside of your house. I'm not saying for everybody to go out and get one, but it gives you a little bit of peace of mind, you know.
You know, something I didn't know about until a couple years ago was that you can call your local first responders and they register as a house with an individual with special needs in that home, so that when responding, it will come up with your address. So we called our fire station and we called our local police station, and they made note of it.
That's awesome.
So that they know. And there's also a program, it's called Yellow. Is it Red Dot or Yellow Dot? I'd have to double check, but you can get it from the police station, and it's a little sticker that you put on your car, and in your glove box is a corresponding like folio of special needs information, whether it's I am nonverbal, I don't like to be touched, I'm allergic to this is our preferred hospital. You know, these are individuals, if I'm unconscious, you can call that know how to interact with so-and-so. You know, all those things that can help the given situation.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that.
I
had
love
no
that.
idea, and I'm definitely gonna call them.
Exactly.
I had no idea, and it's great to, you know, and this just shows that it's very good to bounce off other parents, and this is this whole
why
video
these
is so
conversations
important.
are so important.
Our community supports itself.
Supports each other, supports one another, and supports everybody that's never even, you know, even.
I love it. So if you have any questions from our presentation today, please email us at collabcom.mission@gmail.com, and we would be more than happy to get back to you. We hope you learned a lot today. We hope this was informative, and thank you for joining us. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks. Oh wow, that's nice.
I love it when you get in the